Hi, it's Christina with the Sisyphean Journal. I am doing a multi-part response to this Life Dynamics video. Mark Crutcher interviewed these three young ladies who had worked for Douglas Karpen in Texas. If you watch this video series, it'll become very clear why pro-lifers dubbed him the Texas Gosnell. And in the other videos in this series, I do talk about why I think he and Gosnell were pretty simpatico. I think they knew each other. I think they exchanged tips and hints with each other. You know, in any profession, you like to talk to your colleagues about how they handle situations. I know that in every job I've worked in, I like to consult with my colleagues about situations and share ideas. And I think, you know, Gosnell and Karpen were definitely exchanging ideas. I don't know specifically anybody else where I'd say, oh yeah, these two were in cahoots, but definitely Gosnell and Karpen. So she had just, she was talking about babies over 24 weeks and how every week past that 24 weeks, you notice significant changes in how mature the baby looks.
I'm talking about being really tired after this procedure from where he could not get this fetus out. You know, and it's very overwhelming. We used to look at each other, and sometimes our tears would come out, you know, with the other assistants. Our tears would come out because we would say to ourselves, why? We would always think he's so greedy, you know. And we were not talking about normal price. I'm talking about $4,000, $5,000 for a procedure this big.
Okay. And again, that's consistent with the typical price for an abortion at that point in pregnancy. And something I want you to notice is, pro-lifers, I want you to notice that these women were not feeling casual and, oh, goody, we get to kill some babies today. They weren't going in all cheerful and gleeful about what they were doing. They were very troubled by what they were doing. And a lot of abortion clinic workers talk about they go into it thinking they're helping women, and the horrors of it just creep up on them gradually. They don't immediately have you go back in the back when they're pulling out a 24-week fetus and snapping its neck. They'll have you up at the front desk. They'll have you doing pregnancy tests. They'll have you doing counseling, and they'll have you start with the early abortions, and they gradually work you up so that yeah, it might as well be hung for a sheep as for a lamb. It just gradually gets worse and worse. And in a lot of ways, the worse it gets, the harder it is to quit, because the more evil you're having to admit to yourself when you leave. It's a lot easier to just compartmentalize that. I'm helping women, I'm helping women, I'm helping women, I'm helping women, I'm helping women. And don't think any further past that. The worse it is, because otherwise you're having to accept the fact that you're doing this for no good reason, other than Karpen wanting to get his $4,000.
As long as the patients had the cash, he was going to do it past the 25 weeks.
And again, that flies counter to the idea that these abortions past 25 weeks are done in hospitals for medical indications. These women are making it very clear, if you walk in with cash on the barrelhead, the abortion's getting done, and these aren't sick mothers or babies with severe disabilities.
Did you ever assist
Yes, I did.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of experience did you?
Look at that woman's face. This, again, pro-lifers, you need to remember, these are not people who are like, yay, goody, goody, we get to kill some babies. I'm not saying that there aren't people like that, because I've read quotes. This one abortion clinic worker thinking it was kind of beautiful when the baby came out. And, oh, they talked about this one guy who loved dilating the cervix like a lotus in the moonlight. So there were some people who were real creepy about it, but these young ladies obviously weren't.
Did you have?
The same thing she did is the same thing I did. I would tell Deborah all the time, Deborah, I don't want to go in there, I don't want to go in there. And he would tell me, like, you can do it, you can do it. If you feel like you just can't look at it, just turn your face.
He wanted me in the phone room because I've always been pretty good at appointments and, you know, talking to people and convincing them to come to the clinic. I just knew.
Convincing them to come to the clinic. Convincing them to come to the clinic. And she's so casual about it. I was good at the phones at convincing them to come into the clinic, that was the phone person's job. Not to share information, but to convince them to come into the clinic.
do my way, you know, as far as talking to patients, being real good, convincing patients to make appointments. And so that's when he threw her in the back office, which
So when this lady got real good at sales, she had to go back into the procedure room.
was OR, sterilization, you know, things like that. I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, from these large abortions, these botched abortions that he was doing, to hurting the patients on the table, to causing some kind of major problem with the woman's, you know, ripping a uterus and not letting the patients know.
Ripping the uterus and not letting the patients know, that is not something unique to Karpen. I'm releasing these over a several day period, so I'll try to get some research and provide you some links below about that. But the one that sticks out most to me was in a National Abortion Federation risk management seminar. One guy described that when he pulled bowel, which is exactly what it sounds like. You reach in thinking you're going to pull out a chunk of fetus and you pull out a loop of the woman's intestine. And he said he would just poke it back through the hole, give her extra drugs to contract the uterus harder, hoping it'd clamp down that hole, keep her a little longer in recovery to keep a close eye on her, and then send her home none the wiser. And Michael Burnhill, who was medical director of Planned Parenthood at the time, ripped that guy a new one about that, reviewed what the proper procedure was for caring for a patient if you had pulled bowel, and he asked, how many of you handle it this way? And he counted 6 people who raised their hands. Just send the woman home none the wiser. Pretend it never happened.
Try to stitch them back together and send them home with the package of gauze, and then they can come back tomorrow so you can pull it out, but never telling the woman, you know, hey, I ripped your cervix. You need to get some kind of, you know, some kind of special, you know, you need to get that looked at, you know. He would never tell the woman.
And if he had a patient that asked a lot of questions, he'll prefer for them to be put to sleep.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So much for the women making informed decisions. These women are saying he doesn't want them asking a lot of questions. He doesn't want to answer their questions. He just wants to knock them out and not have to deal with them.
Any little comment that she would make as far as if you were on the table, it was his way of making more money, of course, because deep sedation meant dishing out another $200.
And again, that's something we saw at Gosnell's clinic. They had the women choose their anesthesia based on price. So, yep.
So if you made, is it going to hurt? I mean, this man would walk out the room and say, Deborah, go talk to her, tell her she needs to get put to sleep. And normally it was our job to go convince the girl that she had to get put to sleep.
Did they have a CRNA in there? A certified registered nurse anesthetist? Did they have an anesthesiologist in there? It sounds like they were not doing a lot of pre-planning about anesthesia. And I'll provide a link below. It's got nothing to do with abortion. It's just this anesthesiology resident. I think he's a resident. Has a YouTube channel about anesthesia. And the amount of thought and planning that goes into properly planning anesthesia would boggle the mind. There's probably as much thought going into the anesthesia as into the surgery itself. But they're treating anesthesia as something, not just knock her out. She's going to be a nuisance. So I don't know. I saw this once before, but I don't remember if he had anybody. I don't think he had anybody qualified to administer general anesthesia.
And a lot of them would raise a lot of hell. But they didn't have no choice. They had to do what he said because guess what? You're going to lose $150. In other words, that was $150 that you did not get back. So a lot of them would either lose the $150 or pay the $200 and go ahead and get it over with.
Oh, so I think she's talking about they're not going to give the $150 back for the lower level of anesthesia, so they might as well pay the extra to get the more anesthesia. I wish Crutcher had explored this a little more.
So other employees besides just Deborah and Crystal knew that these sort of things were going on.
Yeah.
Everybody there.
Everybody knows. It's an open book.
Okay, so I've almost hit 10 minutes, but you know, there's only a little bit left on this, so this video is going to go a little long. I'm going to finish whatever these ladies have to say.
The women that go there have no idea what they're getting themselves into. A lot of the questions have been, does the baby feel? And I think that would make me so mad because I would say, why would that matter to you if you're coming in here to kill your baby? You know, why ask that question?
I find that interesting that she finds that, oh my, dark again. I find it interesting that she finds that question troublesome, that they're going to kill the baby, but they don't want it to feel pain. I mean, to me, that kind of makes sense. If the woman feels like she has no choice, she feels trapped, she really feels like this is the only way out, but she doesn't want the baby to suffer. And a lot of women say that the reason they're having abortions is because their situation is so bad, they don't want to bring the baby into that situation. So they're kind of feeling like they're euthanizing the baby. So she's bewildered by it, but it makes sense to me. And also, abortion clinic counselors will tell you again and again and again and again and again, one of the things many women ask is, will the baby feel pain? Is this going to be painful for the baby? And, you know, part of me thinks, you're going to have your limbs ripped off one by one. What do you think it's going to feel like? But also, especially earlier in pregnancy, when you can still sell the, oh, it's just a glob of tissue lie, the answer is always no, it can't feel anything. Although the Davenport Hooker videos where he poked and prodded aborted babies before they died and showed that they did respond, I think indicates that probably from at least 8 weeks, they definitely are feeling something. And infants respond more strongly to pain than adults do. The ability to understand and cope with pain is something that comes with maturity. So its nervous system isn't that sophisticated yet might actually mean that they are experiencing more pain. Food for thought.
And of course, you would want to say, yeah, it feels, but that wasn't your job to say that. Your job was to, whatever it took to get that person in the back, you know.
Whatever it took to get that person in the back. Oh, losing my light again. Come on. Hold on. That's better. Again, it's abortion sales. It's not abortion counseling. It's not options counseling. Options counseling means whatever it takes to get that woman in the back. So that Karpen gets his $4,000, or Gosnell gets his $2,000, or whoever gets however much. Okay, so it ends there. Okay, so again, this is a multi-part series. I'm going to put it all in one playlist so you can begin at the beginning. Thanks for listening, and please like, share, and subscribe.